Welcome back to UnSpun episode 66. I'm your host, Jan Irvin. Today, I'm here with Jacob Duellman, and Joe Atwill is out today. His wife is leaving town. UnSpun episode 66. And I just got feedback. I've got to turn that off. I'm here with Jacob Duellman. I got to remember to mute the YouTube feed because I had it up,
Oh, for the chat room.
The chat room, and I forgot to mute and pause the video on there. So anyway, Jacob, welcome back. I'm excited to have you back. You've made some amazing discoveries in the last week since you were here, and you found a nice little CIA document right off the CIA's website showing Thomas Harrison's connections to the CIA, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some other goodies today. So anyway, welcome back. It's good to have you.
Thank you very much for having me back. It's an honor.
Well, and the whole purpose of this is to encourage people, because obviously you just started digging in and you found a massive rabbit hole, let's say, that you've done a lot of flushing out. And, it's to encourage people to be able to do that themselves and to not be intimidated, because, now what you've uncovered and you can see it, and it's just, and nobody can tell you otherwise about this research because you're the one who's gone through it all, and they have to be willing to check all the links, read all the material, do all the stuff that you did to understand all of the material that you found. But that's just the process. And now what you can do to help others is, say you wrote a book on all of this information, or you come on the podcast and you present it to other people, but now you're sharing this verified research with others. So, this way we're always encouraging, empowering others to be able to do this type of research and to be able to handle this, type of discovery on their own and to not be intimidated.
Yeah, there's certainly no reason to be intimidated. It's kind of like lifting a rock and finding a bunch of bugs and they're scattering all over different directions, and you're really curious about all of them. You want to know why they're there under that rock, so you go around trying to pick every little bug as it runs away. And the one goes down into a hole, and you follow that one down into a hole, and you think it's a rabbit hole, and then all of a sudden you find a cave system, and that cave system leads you into a cavern, and that cavern leads you into a whole bunch of different tunnels. And that's basically what happened. I started with Tom Harrisson, and I found a lot of information. Actually, just today at lunch, I was just doing a look into his book, Savage Civilization, on his passage on Hollywood, and I got to thinking about some research that we'll talk about later on, and some connections to Hollywood. So I started to look at Alan Dulles and Tom Harrisson to see where they might connect, and I first hit was right on the CIA's website.
And did you Google that and it showed up on the CIA's website?
Yeah, it was actually Google that helped me out with that of all.
Oh wow, that's hilarious. So here let's. I'm just going to share that document on the screen here so that people can see it.
Yes, please do.
So this is directly off of the CIA's website. This link is not. Jacob, you did send me the link earlier. I did have it in my browser earlier. But anyway, here's the document that you found, and it's the Central Intelligence Agency approved for release in 2001. I think that's supposed to say.
It says 2002.
Okay, yeah, 02. Okay, yeah.
August 21st, 2000.
Sorry. Yeah, you're right. Reading that backwards. So anyway, to Brigadier General F. Truby Davidson. Now, I had Truby Davidson in the Brain database. And let's see. So, and I did some mapping of him before. So now he was a member of the Order of Skull and Bones, and I had him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten that far. So this is all.
Okay. Yeah. So we're right. Yeah. Here we go. We're right into the Order of Skull and Bones.
Yeah. I'm going to pull up your Brain database here real quick. I'm sorry if the connection goes a little bit.
And of course, he was a key figure to helping found. He was the CIA is under him, so that means he was a founder of the CIA, along with people like Gregory Bateson and what's his name, oh shoot, now I'm forgetting Colonel House or one of those guys. Anyway, I have him up here. Oh, Wild Bill Donovan. So
Wow.
yeah, so he's up there with those guys, And so here's Brigadier General Thomas Harrisson. Now he's of the British Army. So this is also, and I probably shouldn't give too much away of your research, but this is also exposing a massive collusion between the U.S. and British intelligence communities. And he worked with Gregory Bateson. In fact, Gregory Bateson's right here. So you have F. Truby Davidson and Gregory Bateson right here with Harrisson, and these ties to the intelligence community, the top brass or the top of the CIA, as well as weaponized anthropology, which is actually further exposed by this CIA letter. So anyway,
I mean, wow! I thought I found something, big, but this is just getting a lot larger. I didn't have time to go much further at my lunch break, so I really wish I would have saw that.
Well, and I was mapping a bunch of your findings in today. I only got, 18, 20 pages through all the notes that you sent me. Jacob sent me about 30 pages, 32 pages of notes, but really good stuff. Somebody's asking for primary sources, please. We just had them literally on the screen, so you'll just have to pay attention. Thank you.
Yeah, just scroll back a little bit. You can always.
Yeah, you can scroll back a little bit. You'll see the CIA documents there on the screen. So, all right. So, where do we want to go? So, we're talking about this CIA document, and what do you want to discuss about it? It's Alan Dulles is writing to Brigadier General Truby Davidson, and we see, Dear Truby, I was distressed to hear of your illness, yada, yada, and these sound like, kind of nothing here, but, General Smith, General Davidson has arrived in his absence, and then this is his secretary, and then this is General Bedell Smith, Central Intelligence Agency, Washington, D.C., and then, let's see, Walter Reed Wolf, Deputy Director, just some note there. And this is F. Truby Davidson. This is to Alan Dulles. With reference to our telephone conversation of today, the proposed expedition to Sarahawk, which would be conducted by my wife and myself, would be under the auspices of the American Museum of National History. So here they're discussing using history museums, etc., as covers for intelligence work. Okay. So, and we saw this before with Wasson and the American, Philosophical Society or something founded by Benjamin Franklin. But here they're doing it again. And then it says, our contact in Sarahawk is one Tom Harrisson, government ethnologist and curator of the Sarahawk Museum. And then he's going on, I am enclosing a copy of the letter which has just been received by the head of the Department of Anthropology at the American Museum. Okay, so here we see clear collusion between the American Museum, the Department of Anthropology, and again, weaponized anthropology. We see the Sarahawk Museum involved in intelligence work between the British and, British MI6 and the CIA, as well as British Army, since Harrisson was Army. And he's talking about here, it admits that he's a government ethnologist. So I thought it might be, you might be interested in seeing Mr. Harrison's letter, F. Truby Davidson. So, it just goes on here, but Tom Harrisson, government ethnologist and curator, April 1952, Sarahawk Museum. Dear Shapiro, I had got a considerable way of investigating the houseboat and other possibilities and arrangements when, unfortunately, the political trouble struck out here. For the first time, there is now a state of emergency declared. It is therefore not practicable to plan very much for the moment. For instance, all vessels are liable to requisitions, movement of non-official persons restricted, and the general atmosphere uncertain. Moreover, I myself, having a good deal of experience in jungle warfare, etc., naturally am exceptionally busy both trying to do my own work and the emergency work. If the proposition continues at present, it is not unpleasantly serious. But at the same time, I do not think that any reasonable government officer would welcome a visit of the character previously proposed, and when you wrote that proposal seemed an excellent one. It is to be hoped that the situation will be much improved. Anyway, yada yada. But this is from Tom Harrisson, and this is in the CIA archives, released 2002, August 21st. And, we can see the CIA's correspondences and notes in it, etc. here. But anyway, there we go. Back to you, Jacob.
That's a pretty remarkable find to see that. I mean, that just kind of shows the cell right there between the British intelligence, because mass observation in 1952 is pretty much in full swing, I believe.
Yeah, and I wonder, since Wasson was a high-level CIA agent, we see, Tom Harrisson working in ornithology. I wonder if Wasson was. They're both connected through Alan Dulles. But they're both working on MK Ultra projects from different angles, etc. And it would just be so interesting to see if if in my boxes and notes on Wasson, if I come across Harrison's name, or True B.F. Davidson to think about it.
Yeah, that's true. It'd be interesting to see if there's any collection of Wasson's library as far as the bibliography that he had. I know some intellectuals like to keep a list of the books that they had in their library. It'd be interesting to see if there's anything about Wasson in that regard, and whether or not he had any of Tom Harrison's books. And it'd be another nice little tie in there, because at least he'd have an interest intellectually into what he does as a man. So
yeah,
it'd be one little inroad.
So what do you think as you're discovering how weaponized anthropology works on the ground in Borneo? What do you think about that?
Well, it's tough to really think about it because I'm still getting so much data. I mean, it's like a fire hose is coming in. I'm very much in the grammar stage. And as I apply logic to this, it seems more data kind of changes it. But as far as weaponized anthropology in Borneo is concerned, I mean, I think we're finding that Tom Harrisson was at the forefront of that. His book, Have a Civilization, was published by Gollancz, who I've been finding is running an intelligence cell, is along the lines of your spies in academic clothing. Is there anything in particular you're trying to look for in my paper specifically I can look at?
Well, no, not necessarily. I mean, well, you just mentioned Gollancz, so why don't we start digging into him? That's a good segue point, because basically Gollancz was Tom Harrison's publisher. Mm-hmm. And so he's a very key person, but he's even more key than I think any of us imagine. When you hit on this Gollancz character, it really wove everything in the top echelons all together. And let me just pull this up, because so here's Brigadier General Thomas Harrisson. And we see him tied over here again to Gregory Bates and Truby Davidson, etc. But and then we see Skull and Bones there. Oops, that shouldn't be above Thomas Harrisson. I don't think he was a member of Skull and Bones. Sorry about that. I'll have to fix that later. But so here's Sir Victor Gollancz, and he's a Fabian. He's a hardcore Zionist and communist, and he's working directly with George Orwell or Eric Blair. Now, who did George Orwell work with? Well, George Orwell was a Fabian, and he worked with Aldous Huxley. In fact, he was Aldous Huxley's student, and Aldous Huxley was his tutor. And he was tied in with Arthur Koestler, whom I've exposed in my paper Enthusians, What's in a Name? But George Orwell was published by this organization, the New Left Book Club, that was founded by Sir Victor Gollancz. So why don't Gollancz? So why don't you tell us about all of that history there?
Okay, let me just do a quick search on my PDF so I could pull that up here. Gollancz, and just should I pull up? I mean, I've already read Orwell's letter about Gollancz to his literary editor literary agent last week. I don't know if you want me to reread that letter again.
Well, just give people a fresh start.
Okay. Well, just pull Victor Gollancz next. There's a lot of Victor here, so apologies for as I have 32 pages to go through to find it. This is all very fresh in my head. I know thinking on air is not the best thing for.
And Victor Gollancz wrote Savage Civilization. Where did you want to dive in at?
Yeah, see, I'm not a podcaster or a YouTuber. This is my second time ever being on YouTube, so I got to apologize in advance because I'm not very professional when it comes to presentation.
Well, just remember, there's like 50 people watching you pause right now, so you should probably say something.
it's like trying to record or play a concert, and your guitar string breaks.
Yeah.
And now you're trying to fix your guitar string. And
well, let's get back to this. So let's see. Now, where did I just put your notes? Dang it! Here we go. All right, so so go into.
Let's start with Orwell. Just go right with the primary citation. I just found that letter actually. So I'll reread this again. This is written to Mr. Moore, Leonard Moore, who is his literary agent. It says, "Herewith the manuscript of The Road to Wigan Pier. Parts of it I am fairly pleased with, but I should think the chances of Gollancz choosing it as a left book club selection are small, as it is too fragmentary and on the surface not very left wing. Perhaps if it were sent on to him more or less at once, he might have a look at it or get someone else to do so before the Christmas holiday. But I suppose we are not likely to hear from him before I leave for Spain, which should be in about a week. Yours sincerely, Eric A. Blair." There's a footnote in there. This appears right after the Left Book Club appears in the passage, and it states, "The Left Book Club, founded by Victor Gollancz in May 1936 and published by him, was an anti-fascist, pro-Soviet, and for the Popular Front. Subscribers had to accept the monthly choice of the selection committee consisting of Victor Gollancz, Harold Lasky, and John Strachey. By this time, the membership had reached 40,000.
So, last year I did a couple shows discussing publishers as intelligence cells. And again, we see it with Overbook Press, The New Left. We discussed it with Trine Day and Park Street Press and Feral House, I suspect, and, some of these others, City Lights, etc. These are, all companies that I suspect are involved in this. But, so we have evidence for sure of the New Left Book Club, and then, all the attacks that we've had out of Trine Day, etc. But this guy, Harold Lasky, is another important one because he's also a Fabian socialist. All these guys are Fabians. And what we're seeing here is really how the Fabian Society becomes, and their logo is the wolf in sheep's clothing. And they really are behind promoting all of these eugenics against the population, all this disinformation, promoting Zionism, etc. They create the London School of Economics, that creates the Rolling Stones, that creates the pop music, and on and on and on. They're funding all of this through themselves. They helped to found the Frankfurt School. We see Aldous Huxley is another Fabian. Of course, Aldous Huxley goes on to head one of the key architects of the CIA's MK Ultra program that we've exposed so much of. But all of this stuff is connecting through this Fabian Society, and now with this New Left Book Club, we're beginning to understand how they promoted all of the socialism and, feminism, all of this stuff. Here we even see John B.S. Haldane. Well, who's he? He's the one that came up with the famous quote that Terence McKenna always spins. It isn't just stranger than you suppose, it's stranger than you can suppose. Well, John B.S. Haldane's quote, John B.S. Haldane, my own suspicion is that the universe is not only queerer than we suppose, but it's queerer than we can suppose. And then, of course, we've shown Terence McKenna tied on into all of this and promoting his own line of eugenics and and sterilization against males, etc., in previous shows, which is also found on my website and the articles on him. But all of this is coming out of this New Left book club. And, so a lot more of these authors need to be fleshed out. Here's Arthur Koester again, and he wrote The Ghost in the Machine that's, so much cited in by Leary for pediomorphosis and use in MK Ultra, and basically mutating children to get them to adopt their ideas, etc.
You just showed it. I mean, you could dive into this research and you can go in a million different directions. There's so much information that's out there that, I mean, really anybody can go out there and find some information and tie right back into you and really, really expose a lot. I just found some more information in regards to Gollancz and his interactions with George Orwell in particular. This comes from a pretty good source. It comes from a review on the Left Book Anthology. I just got to correct you really quick. It's not called the New Left Book Club. That's a recent incarnation that.
Did I confuse those when I stated it?
Yeah, it's sure actually just the Left Book Club, and I think your citation in the Brain database calls it the New Left Book Club as well.
It's corrected now, fixed.
Okay, I just wanted to catch that real quick. But going back to this passage I found from the Left Book Anthology. Let me see if I can find the author. I think I cited him at the bottom of this passage here real quick. I just want to give him credit. It's a long passage. Maybe I shouldn't read all of it. I'm just trying to see if I can find the best bits. But it's by Gary McCullough.
All right.
And I guess we can kind of go into John Strachey and Gollancz and his editorial prowess. So the Left Book Anthology brings together a number of extracts from Left Book Club titles. Paul Lady's introductory essay, he is the senior editor of the London Review of Books, sets the Left Book Club in context. He outlines the personalities of the principal characters, especially the editorial triumvirate. Victor Gollancz's energy and tremendous editorial skills are balanced against his intellectual crankiness and elitism. Harold Lasky is presented as a highly respected, there's a typo in their copy here, so excuse me, as a highly respected Christian socialist professor from the LSE, and John Strachey as a snobbish upper-class Marxist with an undoubted gift for popular writing. And this is John Strachey, I believe, who is the son of the publisher Strachey, if I'm correct.
Yeah, and you have a couple of good quotes in here about Strachey. Let me just read those really quickly.
Sure, go ahead.
Like all socialists, I believe that the socialist society evolves in time to a communist society, John Strachey. And then, and this one is, in American newspaper jargon, John Strachey would be described as Marxist number one, and the title would be well-deserved, and that's Left News, March 1938.
So a lady, continuing on with the article here, a lady also charts the startling success of the club. By the end of 1936, that's a key number right there.
Yeah, we should, you know what, let me just mention, too, that the Bolsheviks murdered 60 to 70 million people, and that shouldn't be forgotten. All of these people promoting all this Marxist, socialist crap, communist crap, you know, that resulted in 60 to 70 million people being murdered. So just keep that in mind, because, you know, these people, which, you know, it's very clear as well that the intelligence community, both British and U.S. and Soviet, and I'm sure others, are at the core, at the center of promoting all of this communist crap. And,
this cell is looking like you're right on the dot there.
Yeah, and I've been noticing this for a while, that, you know, that the CIA was involved in promoting all of this socialist stuff, and really what McCarthy was battling against was the CIA. But, and all of these, well, not just the CIA, but these occult groups and Zionism, et cetera, as well, all tied directly into this stuff. But, yeah, it's very clear that the CIA, while, you know, one side of the government is promoting freedom and all, the CIA is there at the forefront promoting communist and socialist ideas out to the American public. You know, I mean, like look at the MK Ultra program, look at all the hypersexuality, all of that stuff is actually leading to socialism, because when you have people without families and extended families, they have to rely on government. They haven't set up a life for survival. They've set up a life for somebody else to take care of them, and the only answer for that is socialism and communism, as the answer to their lazy behavior and not planning for their own lives.
That's true. I mean, it's kind of wicked. I mean, you can kind of see how weaponized anthropology fits into this, because you can kind of see how the techniques from the jungles in Borneo go to the streets of the UK to Western society in general.
Well, and look at how these anthropologists are going around studying these cultures to figure out how to break them and to, and you shatter these ancient individual cultures, and then you insert communism and reliance in their stead.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of sick.
Not kind of, but
it's it's not beyond kind of sick. It's disturbing.
it's psychopathology on a extreme level, to say the least.
There's actually, I just saw it Reddit. I was trying to find some information on Gollancz and his editorial techniques and how he kind of acts. And let's see if I can pull this out. There's a man by the name of Gary McCullough. He viewed Gollantz's educational approach as preaching to and forging an educated elite, and has even described the domination of middle-class intellectuals over the network as an agency of social control over the aspirations of the working class through middle-class cultural hegemony. I mean, that's pretty loaded right there, but I mean, that kind of shows Gollancz was definitely interested in influencing society and putting his viewpoints out there.
And that's what we see today, and everybody thinks they're individualistic and all, and yet they all got the same damn tattoos, from the same pattern at the same tattoo shop, and the same gigantic ear holes and all of this stuff, and they, each group is wearing its uniform. The punk rockers and the deadheads and the ravers and the burners, they all got their uniforms, but they all think they're individuals, that they're behaving individualistically while they destroyed and are going along with the destruction of all of these cultures that were actually truly, individualistic and ancient, and brought people all the way through time, regardless of their differences. It was what the differences is what made them so unique and precious, not this homogenization of the entire planet.
Yeah, it seems like self-determination has been kind of skewed into, I'm going to be whatever I think I want to be, and I'm not going to become.
You mean I'm going to be whatever the CIA wants me to be, and I'm going to think that I'm being a rebel about it,
Exactly. But really, I'm just, coming out of a cookie cutter, and I look like everybody else, and I have no individuality whatsoever, no original ideas, and really no family or structure anymore. I mean, it's kind of sad. You kind of look around, and people my generation don't get married as much.
All right, so you've got tons and tons of really good notes here. It's fresh off the top of your head. Let's just start scrolling through it and dive into some of these. Gollancz, we should mention, ran the Christian book club as well. And of course he was Jewish, by the way. And he was
considered himself a Christian socialist as well.
Right. And
according to Wikipedia,
let's read that quote from him talking about Christians, are not exactly bright. You want to go into that?
Sure. I just got to search for that really quick because there's the 32-page document. It's kind of hard to find.
I think it's on page 8.
Page 8. Okay, and this is from John R. Coleman, so we kind of got to take it with a grain of salt because he doesn't like to cite his sources. Okay, I found the paragraph. Let's see if there's any context before it, just real quick.
Yeah, just look, right. Just read it. It's
all right. So I'll just start from. Let's see. I just lost the screen.
All right. Well, it says.
Gollancz was reported as saying Christians are not exactly bright, so it'll be easy for socialism to lead them down the garden path through their ideals of brotherly love and social justice. Fabian socialism targeted political, economic, and educational organizations in addition to the Christian church. Later, Gollancz's left-wing books gave special discounts to Christians who were interested in socialist ideas. On the selection committee of the Left Book Club were Gollancz himself, Professor Harold Lasky, and John Strachey, a Labour Party member of Parliament. Gollancz, who also owned the Christian Book Club, was a strong believer in Bolshevik Russia as an ally of socialism. At the urging of Beatrice Webb, he published one of the Fabian Society's best sellers, Our Soviet Ally. Fabian socialism set out from the very beginning of its history to penetrate and permeate the British Labour and Liberal parties, and, as it turned out, also the Democrat Party in the United States. It was relentless in its zeal and energy to create feminist socialism, at which was to become highly successful. Socialism succeeded in gaining the ascendancy of school boards, town councils, and labor unions under the guise of bettering the lot of the working man. Fabian socialism's determination to capture education mirrors what Madame Zinoviev had long counseled in Bolshevik Russia. And that pretty much ends.
Yeah, that's, and that's really a doozy right there. Now, Gollancz eventually, his Gollancz Ltd. eventually goes on to be bought out by Orion Publishing Group.
Who published Jason Horsley.
Right.
Indeed. Which is curious. I wonder if he knows that.
Yeah.
Or if he understands this information, how it contacts back.
Probably not, research. But,
That'll probably bring some questions into his mind for sure.
Now, notable names under this incarnation of imprint: Philip K. Dick, and now Tessa Dick, his fifth wife, lives a few blocks from me. I don't, if she's still alive. I should probably look that up. I haven't seen her around town for several months. She may have died. Now, and we've done a lot to expose none other than Jiddu Krishnamurti. And so, Jiddu is right there in with this this whole group here. So let me just pull this up in the brain database here. But Jiddu was working directly with Aldous Huxley, and he was one real dirty, son of a bitch, to say the least. But he encouraged people. Knowledge helping man to ascend seems so utterly nonsense to me. But he went on to, he was basically in the promotion of the idea that thinking was bad and you shouldn't care to know things. But this is all of this operation that was being promoted by Aldous Huxley and the CIA. We see that Jiddu Krishnamurti also knew Joseph Campbell. Joseph Campbell, of course, was working with the CIA, created, the hero's journey that I've exposed with Steve Outram. Joseph Campbell was behind Stanford Research Institute's Changing Images of Man, version 1. He was the man in charge of that organization, or that project. Of course, CIA agents Willis Harriman, James Fadiman, Carl Rogers, B.F. Skinner, Margaret Mead, Ralph Metzner, Sir Julian Huxley, Stanley Krippner, all of these agents and participants as CIA assets were a part of this project. But, so this is how all of this stuff, directly ties together. We're just a few clicks away and we're right back to the Fabians. Here we are, Aldous Huxley again, and then we get right back to the Esalen Institute and the CIA's MKUltra program. It's, one click away. So the Fabian Society, this British organization, is really key behind the promotion of all these ideas. We have John Maynard Keynes, the economicist. He's working with the Fabians and working with, I think he was working with the London School of Economics as well, and the New School for Social Research. And then here we're right back with the Fabian Society again. So, this Fabian Society really is central, as well as this publishing company that Jacob has found in tying all of this together. This really seems like sort of almost an intelligence community nexus, doesn't it?
Yeah, it seems like we're kind of getting the crowbar in the door and we're starting to open it wide open. Especially with connections to the Fabian Society and Gollancz, there actually is one I found in a footnote in a essay about Robert Carlyle by a Freemason. And And in his footnotes, he mentioned that one of the most reliable biographies of Robert Carlyle up until 1983 was written for and published by the Fabian Society and Victor Gollancz. And if you look at
they just put it right in all of our faces.
And if you look up the Gollancz Ltd logo, I have it on my paper, but it's also on the Gollancz Wikipedia.
I'll see if I can pull it up here in your paper. I remember seeing it, so I'm just scrolling to it. Hey, everybody, excuse us. So
people are going to laugh when they see the symbol.
Where am I looking now? I may have gone past it already.
It's probably pretty recent. It's going to be close to the LTD Wikipedia, I believe.
I'm not seeing it.
I'm just page down.
Oh, here it is. All right. So
what page are you on?
Okay, it's on page 5. All right. So what is the VG symbol? Is the G symbol? What is that for? Freemason?
That's what it kind of seems to me. But if you look at the V, it almost kind of reminds me of the apron. The way it's shaped, and it folds over the apron of the Freemason as well. And I see that G, it also reminds me of that. So I kind of see that symbolism, and it reminds me of the in-your-face kind of symbolism that these kind of types like to do. I can't verify it because there's no, Masonic medallion that's like that, unless somebody can offer an example that shows that. But Victor Gollancz, VG, also has apron fold kind of imagery inside of it. It's just curious. It's something to look at. Might not go anywhere, but it's something worthy of consideration at the very least.
At the very least. All right, so let's go into some more of this stuff here. Let me pull this off the view here. All right, so now who else is published by this guy? What I wanted to mention is that he also so-called predicts the 6 million Jews during World War II. Now, of course, other scholars, I had somebody on. Now I'm forgetting his name. It was, 4 or 5 years ago at least, maybe 6 years ago. And he had looked at research into that, tracing that myth back to the 1889 or 1890 in the New York Times. This number of 6 million Jews being persecuted in Russia. But I think it's a Kabbalistic number. But the 6 million had been reported, long before the 1930s. It was always reported 6 million Jews being persecuted here or there. So then Gollancz, he predicts, and when did he predict this? What year was it? Do you remember? It was in the 1930s, right?
It was in the 1930s. This is before. Well, actually, I think it was maybe 1940.
Yeah, but he predicts it essentially like 50 some years after the New York Times predicted it. And then, and all of the stuff floating around from the 1880s, 1890s about it.
And I'm pulling this up the top of my head, but if I remember the Wikipedia article about this and their notes on it correctly, him making this prediction helped propel him and gain credibility within the publishing and intellectual communities because it showed that he was visionary. So it's just kind of humorous that this, he's a visionary man for predicting this thing, which had been predicted quite a bit by certain people over the years.
And so did you find evidence of him tied directly to Alan Dulles by chance?
The connection that I have to him, to Alan Dulles, is this is kind of where a thought experiment kind of took me after last show, because we always talk about lifetime actors,
right?
And looking at Tom Harrisson, and if you actually look in Savage Civilization, let me just look up the chapter really quick. I have the book handy. It's called Hollywood Ho Ho, page 424. Before he leaves the New Hebrides, he meets Douglas Fairbanks Sr. and Mary Astor, who approach him on a yacht and take him for a little trip, and they want him to film the Savages for a Hollywood movie. So they left their cameraman with him after wining and dining and giving him visions of becoming a star, which he was very much into. He kind of found it laughable how the director who was there was shooting and basically trying to make the natives act anything but their natural selves. And he thought that was just kind of appalling. Like, why are you trying to depict reality through your narrative when your narrative is not the reality? It's complete fiction. So I'm starting to think about that. I'm like, okay, so the Hollywood at this point to Tom Harrison is just complete fiction. People are very obviously acting. They're trying to portray their own visions in their work. What happens around this time in the 1930s? And this is actually where Konstantin Stanislavski dies. And I believe he dies in 1936, and Savage Civilization is published in 37. So this is kind of where the Stanislavski system and method acting arises. And this is kind of where a lot of my paper kind of goes into. Because I wanted to kind of see how total immersion anthropology kind of fits in with total immersion method acting. And they actually kind of have a lot of really good connections. They kind of seem to mix very well, especially when in terms of ethics, because to become totally immersed without letting your subjects know that you're there is quite unethical, especially if you're, injecting chaos and subversion. Plus, people can lose trust after that in psychological aspects. So I started looking into that, and I was trying to figure out who were some of the most prominent educators of the Stanislavski system, and how this might turn into lifetime actors, because you can look at examples like Marlon Brando or Dustin Hoffman, or more currently Sir Daniel Michael Blake Day-Lewis. It's a fantastic actor, by the way. So I started looking into that. Who are the educators? And I found a book published by Victor Gollancz called The Stanislavski System by Sonia Moore. And that kind of got my curiosity going. I was like, who's this Sonia Moore? She's not really listed in any of the major literature on Wikipedia or by a lot of the prominent authors like to write about method acting, because she's listed as a Stanislavski expert and somebody who's been in his training and understanding his system and learning and expanding it for over 30 years. So I did a couple of searches, and I found her obituary in the New York Times from 1992. And in this obituary, there's a very interesting little piece at the bottom. And that was that Sonia Moore was married to a man by the name of Leon Moore. Now, I'm going to have to pull this up really quick because I want to get his real name correct.
Here, let me, I've got it here in the database, too.
Oh, great. Could you pull it up for me? Because I kind of feel awkward going through all this.
Yeah, dude, you need to get yourself a database going. So here's Sonia Moore, and now she was married to this guy, Lev
Borisovich Helfand.
Yes, and then he changes his name to Leon Moore.
Yes, and now Leon Moore became an advisor to Allen Dulles when he was the director of Central Intelligence. Sonia Moore was the founder and leader of the American Center for Stanislavski Theater Art and the Sonia Moore Studio of the Theater. She died in May 1995 at her home in Manhattan. Now,
and she was behind, wasn't she behind or authored the Stanislavski system?
She did. She authored a few books on Stanislavski. The Stanislavski system, I actually just picked it up, but I think it's over in my living room on my couch, so I'm not going to go run over and grab it. Interesting read. I mean, I dove into that the other night, read about a couple chapters, and it's fascinating. I mean, her idea of, it's worth reading. But just to go back to Helfand really quick, just so you can understand his relationship and understand where he comes from and why maybe Allen Dulles would hire him, of all people, as an advisor. You think about advisors, right. You're thinking about that man who's in your ear giving advice. Why is that?
Right.
So Helfand, the second secretary responsible for the Leah. Actually, I think I'm going a little bit too far here. I'm going to read the entire footnote just so we can get the context of where this guy's coming from. This is from Stalin's Agent, The Life and Death of Alexander Orlov by Boris Volodarsky. This is footnote number 4. I'm going to butcher the Russian name, so please, my apologies. I don't speak Russian, so I just don't have those qualities.
I can speak a little Slavic. I can help you out there.
Dmitry Prokhorov, Soloko Stoit Prodat Rodinu. That's the name of the book and author, I believe. St. Petersburg, Neva, 2005, pages 146 to 8. He says, several authors, ergo Vladimir Burtsev, Paul W. Blackstock, including Prokhorov, claim that both Ahrens, the embassy counselor responsible for contacts with the PCF, and Helfand, second secretary responsible for the liaison of the Russian emigre organizations and their press, were directly involved. And this was, I believe, with a kidnapping that occurred in Paris in the I'm going to get the date wrong. I think it was the 1920s. Were directly involved. According to Prokhorov, Helfand was the OGPU agent recruited in 1926 when he was sent to Paris. Without documents, it is impossible to say whether Helfand was or was not an agent, but he was certainly a co-optee In 1926, he was sent to Paris to learn French and get some experience in diplomatic work. In May, he married a Russian-American actress, Sonia Moore, and after 6 months, was appointed vice consul at the Soviet legation. Soon, he was promoted to second secretary and moved with Sonia to the legation premises. Prokhorov claims that Ahrens left Paris on the 26th of January, 1930, i.e., immediately after the abduction. And you have to go into the book to kind of understand where that abduction ties in. Excuse me. And Helfand on the 28th of January left. Other independent sources see Felicia Harrisson, Stanislavski's champion, Sonia Moore and her crusade to save the American theater, Theater History Studies, 1st of June 2004. That's a book I need to get. Confirm that they came to Moscow in February 1930, and this quick retreat from Paris after the Kutupov operation does not look too good for Helfand. However, in Moscow, he served as assistant director of the Anglo-Romance department of the NKID, and in 1935 was appointed first secretary of the Soviet embassy in Rome. There, he and his American wife spent 4 years secretly preparing for defection. In the meantime, he was promoted to charge d'affaires, and in 1940, they both managed to defect to the United States, where Helfand changed his name to Leon Moore. Born on 29th of December 1900 near Poltava in central Ukraine, Lev Borisovich Helfand, or Leon Moore, became an advisor to Allen Dulles, and that kind of connects back to where we started with this. So the man's dirty, and he's very experienced with ambassadorships and embassy work and working with other agents and being in the ear of the director of the Central Intelligence Agency. But he's a defector. Right. He's not colluding with anybody there, His wife publishing under Gollancz and his Left Book Club imprint Gollancz Ltd.
Yeah, you found some really amazing stuff reading through all of this. This guy is really this publishing house, this Left Book Club, and I didn't even get half these guys flushed out yet, but this is, these guys are very obviously British intelligence, and then there's so much collusion between them and what the CIA have been promoting with the MKUltra program, etc. I mean, there's so much collusion here that it really appears that that we're looking at the same group. I mean, here's George Orwell, and then the Fabians, and then that goes into H.G. Wells and Aldous Huxley, and that goes over to Edward Bernays, who was working in the U.S. with Gordon Wasson, and Aldous Huxley working with Timothy Leary and King Kesey. I mean, here's this one-eye Illuminati guy running this whole mind control program, and nobody suspects that he was one of the key guys behind this whole operation, but he's at the Macy conferences behind this stuff. I started writing an article a couple years ago called "Where's Aldous Huxley?" based on the Where's Waldo cartoon skit books, where you have Waldo in a different place, and and you got to find him, but he's like in every drawing. So it's like Aldous Huxley is always there. You just have to find him, or if it's not Aldous, it's Julian, or it's Francis Huxley or Thomas. There's always a Huxley there.
And with just our example today with Gollancz, I mean, you were talking about Jiddu Krishnamurti. I don't think we actually mentioned it, but he encouraged, or Huxley encouraged Krishnamurti to write that book, and that's what put Krishnamurti on the forefront. Right. And if you go on Wikipedia and you look at the publishers of that book, the first UK edition was printed by Gollancz. With the foreword by Huxley. So there's your tie to Huxley to Gollancz right there. I mean, it's
a forward. It doesn't, I mean, see, here's the issue is that Jiddu could have requested that forward himself directly and had that prepared before it was ever submitted to Gollancz, so we can't speculate that ties Huxley directly to it,
And I think the Wikipedia article also didn't mention Gollancz as the publishing company where he introduced him to, but I think it was HarperCollins. So
Yeah.
it'd have to be through HarperCollins, who probably organized with Gollancz to get it published over in the UK for their edition. So there's probably a connection there somewhere, but I don't know how much it is or where it can go.
All right, so we've got about 10 minutes left. Where from here?
Oh, I mean, let's see. We were talking about Stanislavski's system, and you're mentioning the MK Ultra, and this is kind of the road I'm kind of going down right now.
Yeah,
Is trying to
what's
connect.
this? This he had like a map or something. Is that this big proposed Super 15 super task thing?
Yeah, that's something I haven't mastered the Stanislavski system, so that's something I can't really give people a full understanding and account of.
Okay, well
But
let me. Should I show the image on screen
oh,
for them?
yeah, please do because it's an
All right,
interesting image. It's definitely
all
worthy.
right. So here's the image here. Let me just try to blow it up there a little bit.
And that's on the Wikipedia page.
You're cutting out there, Jacob. Hello, hello, hello. I lost you, Jacob. Hello. You still there?
Am I still there?
Yep, you're back. Sorry
Okay.
about that, folks.
Yeah,
All right,
sorry,
yeah,
it
just
cut
keep
out.
going.
Yeah, I'm on Wi-Fi because I'm on a computer that doesn't have a dongle to connect the Ethernet into the dongle into the computer. So apologies.
That's such a brilliant thing that they took that off of computers. It's baffling.
Yeah. But,
So all right, so go ahead.
Allow me to borrow this computer to the one who let me borrow this computer.
Yeah.
Not complaining. All right, so the Stanislavski system and MK Ultra. So I'm looking at Tom Harrisson and his total immersion behavioral aspects. Becoming the character and how becoming the character was such an stark contrast to Savage Civilization, where the director is trying to make the character, the real people, become his character. So under this system, there are no actors. I actually have an article from, I think it was the New York Film University, where they finished an article about method acting, saying, and I'm paraphrasing here because I don't have it drawn up in my paper, that the method of method acting is that there's no acting at all. I mean, you're just being. So
it's like the foundation of reality TV in a way.
Yeah, and that's the foundation for lifetime actors. Because if you're going to be somebody that's out there who's going to pose as an intellectual like Aldous Huxley, and try to gain trust, you have to understand your audience, you have to understand your target, and you have to understand who you are. So, what better way to do that than to psychologically enter the mind and become the character? Go into deep thought, consider all the sources. I mean, it seems like there's a lot of trivium that's kind of mixed into this as well, because you have to gather a lot of grammar. Then you have to think about it logically, and then you need to present yourself authentically. Classical trivium, but present yourself authentically as that character. So when you look at mass observation and you look at how that kind of starts when Tom Harrisson gets out there, he wants people to blend in with the British public. He wants them to observe, listen into conversations, and not get noticed, because he wants everything to be authentic. He wants to be able to see the British public as they are. But he also injects agents into this as well to gather information. So I consider this. I consider the anthropological approach of complete participation, and then you look at that through the method acting, and it just seems like it just kind of fits together. I'd like to find some of the psychologists who work with these early actors to kind of see how they might tie to MK Ultra. I'm sure there's some MK Ultra doctors that are tied to Hollywood stars who did method acting. I was watching On the Wonderfront over the weekend. I have the Criterion Collection version, and there's a documentary on there. And in this documentary, I'm going to get the title wrong, but if you have the movie, you can look it up very easy. It's basically on method. And it talks about the famous scene where I'm going to get one of the actors' names wrong, but it's basically where Marlon Brando is talking to his brother Charlie, and Charlie pulls the gun on him in the car. And it makes a spontaneous scene where Marlon Brando, instead of jerking back violently like you would expect in Hollywood, expresses shame. And he goes, "Oh, Charlie," and he grabs the gun very gently and he just kind of pats it aside. And that completely revolutionized the way film was kind of portrayed. But one of the things that was really interesting that caught my attention was that the other actor couldn't really finish the scene with Brando because he had to leave every day at 4 p.m. to talk to his analyst. And the way they kind of brushed this aside in the movie was that Marlon Brando's mother had died and he was deeply depressed. But I think that depression wasn't just because his mother died. It kind of carried around with him for quite a while before that. And I think after, I'm curious who his analyst was. I couldn't find the name of it. I did a lot of research, but I haven't fleshed it out yet. I know it's possible to flesh it out. I'm sure there's a book out there that's written about Brando that talks about it, but I just haven't found it yet. But I think there's some MK Ultra ties right there. I mean, this could be where the lifetime actors come from. You know, you have the stars that are rising up, but then you also have the intellectuals who
sense of self, general theatrical, outer theatrical sense of self, inner theatrical sense of self, feeling, will, mind, embodiment, experience. Yeah, so this looks like a map of possibly of being a lifetime actor, essentially.
It's very curious.
Yeah, it's very, very curious. So, you know, and I wonder if this Stanislavski method is, you know, what we've been calling lifetime actors for, you know, several years per Joe's term.
Indeed, and as we proceed further in my paper, I mean, there's more detail that kind of goes into that. Just quotes, articles. I mean, there's even a book about cultural observations. And talking about using, and there's only one chapter that I could find from the book, but it was about method acting. You know, if you're going to go and you're going to be an anthropologist or a cultural observer, whether it's to change a society or to just observe and study it, you know, they give all the different methods of method acting that you could do to go in that society and blend in based on, you know, how you want to do your research and how ethical you want to be.
Absolutely. You know, and this goes back to, you know, me calling the CIA the Central Entertainment Agency and stating that all these actors, et cetera, were agents. Now it's beginning to make sense, you know, and obviously an actor is somebody who takes up a role as someone else and is lying about who they are. And if they're good at it, you can't really tell that they're, you know, faking the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. There's a passage from, I just went to the bottom of the paper to read that final passage. It's called Complete Participant in Method Acting for Cultural Observation. This reminds me of Tom Harrisson to the T.
Well, and you know, wouldn't it also Gordon Wasson?
Oh yeah. It's just because he's so fresh in my mind with Savage Civilization and becoming going from a complete introvert who never talked to any of his classmates and cataloged them and followed their hierarchies to totally socially immersing himself with cannibals.
So he was studying his classmates so that he could manipulate them.
Mm-hmm. That's what it seems like. But then he goes into, you know, Borneo and into New Hebrides, and he just becomes one of them. You know, so he considers the society he grew up in a savage, but the people who are eating their own kind are some of the best that are out there. Very weird. So this Complete Participant, just before, I see we only have like 3 minutes left. In this final role, you become fully involved without letting members know of your observation efforts. Now, obviously, Tom Harrisson couldn't do this in the New Hebrides because he was white man, not acting white. But you could do this in mass observation. The implications include the following. You have reduced objectivity due to high involvement and have a high level of insight due to identification with members. Possible ethical problems would ensue because of lack of notification of research subjects depending on purposes of the observation. For example, if you dropped in on meetings without informing those present that you were also there to evaluate and report their behaviors, then your efforts would be judged unethical because of the potential harm that could result to those present. This approach might also be inconsistent with protection of human subjects if you did not allow informed consent of your observation. This role is best when you have access to the organization and or when members' lack of knowledge of your presence would not influence the ethicality of your research purposes. For example, as human resources department manager, you could serve and lead more effectively if you gleaned insights about norms and rules through observation and meeting and rituals. Standards of protection of human subjects presented in the overview of this section are critical in cultural research as well. If you present a cultural study to the CEO of an organization, and your study inadvertently reveals rule breaking or violation of cultural norms, it could have serious career implications for individuals you study. One of the observation role options, Complete Participant, should stand out as a form of observation. Oh, I'm reading the wrong one here. Every day, I don't think I want to read this one.
Yeah, well, we're just about out of time here too.
That's fine. We're at 7:59. But this kind of goes to show that there's a lot of ethical issues with mass observation.
Yeah, and with anthropology as well, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, gnosticmedia.com, gnosticmedia.com. Please support the show. Also support Joe. CaesarsMessiah.com. Jacob, thank you so much. You don't have a website, correct?
That's correct, but you can reach me at jacobduellman@gmail.com. No spaces, no dots, just one full name.
All right. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming back. And, if you hit another big well, let us know, and we'll bring you back again.
Sounds good.
All right. Take care.
All right. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.